Hey guys, welcome back. Today we want to focus on the Enlightenment philosophical ideas that form the basis of American government. So let's go ahead and get started. Remember, you don't ever have to take notes on the essential questions. So first of all, we want to look at Baron de Montesquieu. Now, Baron de Montesquieu was obviously French. Hopefully you can tell by his last name, Montesquieu. He wrote a book called On the Spirit of Laws, in which he advocated for something called separation of powers. Now, separation of powers is probably pretty self-explanatory and probably something you've heard of before. But separation of powers basically is this idea that one person should not be all-powerful in a government. The idea that we should separate governing powers amongst different branches, in our example, the legislative, executive, and judicial, to ensure that no one person gets too much power. Now, if you look here at this political cartoon, I think it's kind of funny, but I like political cartoons. You see the executive on one side, and you see the legislative on the other side, and here in the middle is the fence, and that fence is called separation of powers. So the executive branch is basically telling Congress that they are not allowed to use the FBI, encouraging them to stay on their side of the fence. You guys have heard that phrase, good fences make good neighbors. That's kind of the idea of separation of powers in this cartoon. All right, moving on then to some more philosophers. John Locke, we've already talked about him in great detail. John Locke was the natural rights philosopher who told us that everybody is born with 3 natural rights, and those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Remember, John Locke also told us about the social contract, and Locke believed that the social contract was this agreement between the citizens and their government, that the citizens were essentially giving up their right to do whatever they wanted in order to receive government protection. And then Locke, remember, Locke is the guy that said that if the government stopped working for the people, then the people had the right to overthrow the government and reinstate or instate a new one. Moving on then to JeanJacques Rousseau. One of the most famous quotes from Rousseau is, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." Now think about that for a second. We are born free, essentially, right? But everywhere we are in chains, everywhere we are restricted, we're told what we can and can't do. And Rousseau really struggled with that. He didn't know at what point someone had the authority to restrict the rights of someone else. So he and John Locke talked about the social contract, but Rousseau saw the social contract not as a relationship between the people and the government, but among the people themselves, that they were all agreeing that everyone in a civilization, for example, would agree that we have natural rights, that we have rights of life, liberty, and property, and that you shouldn't ever take those rights away from someone else. So Rousseau kind of looked at it a different way. Again, those rights, natural rights, are life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and property. Don't forget those. All right, moving on to the last guy here, Voltaire, and this is a picture of Voltaire right here. Voltaire was an interesting guy. He was also an Enlightenment philosopher, and he was a strong advocate for freedom of speech and also freedom of religion. Voltaire is credited with saying, "I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to my death the right for you to say it." So he's kind of encouraging people to have their own opinions, have their own beliefs, but then to respect each other's opinions and beliefs, not try to encourage someone to think exactly the same way you do about something. So that's your video for today. Very brief, but if you guys have any questions, let me know. See ya.